The Andy Pollin Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, figuring they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
Yeah, schedule's out. Woo! Find out where they're playing, what time they're playing. Actually, we knew where they were playing. It's just what day and what time they're playing. And even with all the hype over the new coaching staff, with the quarterback who is the number 2 pick of the draft, very little primetime action for the Commanders. They got one Monday night game, they got one Thursday night game, and that's it. The rest of it's Sunday afternoons. Now, there is some flexing available later in the season, and they close out with Atlanta at home and Dallas on the road, and we don't know whether that's going to be Saturday or Sunday. There's some of that. But if things play out like the odds makers expect them to play out, we're going to have basically Sunday afternoons with the Commanders, which is okay with me. I mean, I'm no big fan of these late-night games. So they got one at Philadelphia in Week 14, and Week 3 they're at Cincinnati on Monday Night Football, and we'll take a look at that. Also, the NBA playoffs, which look like we're pretty close now to the conference championships all being set, and we'll talk about that later in the show. And also today, this day, 44 years ago, it's considered to be the birth of Showtime. Magic Johnson, who was a rookie, a 20-year-old rookie with the Los Angeles Lakers and the captain of the team, not even making the trip to Philadelphia for Game 6 of the NBA Finals. It was Magic Johnson playing center. He played point guard all season. He moves to center. He has 42 points and 15 rebounds and 7 assists. And the Lakers knock out the 76ers, win their first title. And we'll look back on that 44 years ago today in the next hour. I have something that, kind of dominates the Tony Kornheiser show, where he talks about the personal frustrations that he has in life. This one actually has a happy ending for me. We've all done this, right? At some point, or maybe you're so on top of things that maybe you've never done this. I can't really remember doing this before, but maybe I have. My routine is I go to the gym before I go to work, and I go to Gold's Gym at Wintergreen Plaza, where Mark does a fabulous job of running the front desk and keeping the gym running and taking care of various problems. And I took my wallet with my clothes. Now, my shorts, maybe I need to do this. All my gym shorts need to have pockets, because I went with my shorts and then put my wallet in the locker. And when I was leaving without the pockets, I did not put the wallet in it or someplace where I could take it with me. And there's no worse feeling than arriving at work and patting your front pocket, my left front pocket, which is where I keep my wallet, and it not being there. That was a very frightening experience. And another problem is, and I'd like to address this with the Golds people if they're interested in my input. It used to be you got a direct call to the front desk. The gym opens 5 o'clock in the morning. You call the front desk, somebody answers. Well, the phone system isn't set up that way anymore. So it took me until like a half an hour ago to finally get in touch with Mark at the front desk. He went to the locker, checked, he got my wallet. I'll pick it up after work, and everything is okay. But it's one of those feelings like, oh, my God. I mean, I'm sure, and this, thank God, has never happened to me, but I'm sure, learning that your house is on fire or something like that, that's as tough a feeling, I guess, as you can have, short of, the ultimate tragedy, anything that involves material things. But the wallet, and it's, we're in an age now where people are always stealing data. The amount of information that you have in there is so, not just stealable, but hackable. And maybe we need to find a way to like implant this information into our bodies so it can't be stolen. I stuck it to my buddy Tom Lavero this past week. And he just got back from a trip to, I believe they went to Greece, and he had somebody reach into his pants to pull out his wallet, and fortunately grabbed his arm, threw him up against the fence, yelled at him. The guy ran away. I said, weren't you afraid that he had a knife? He said, yeah, I was thinking about that when I was yelling at him. But fortunately he didn't. So all's well that ends well with me with the wallet, but it's just the it takes your breath away moment when you're, oh no, I don't have my wallet. And hopefully nobody has taken it at the gym, or if they have, they've turned it into the front desk. Fortunately, it was still in the locker. Mark went to get it, and I will go pick it up after work. All right, enough of that. The schedule, and we do this every year. You know, we look at how it lines up and how the wins and losses are all going to unfold. We could really do this the day after the season because we know who the home opponents are going to be, and we know who the road opponents are going to be. But it really isn't until you see it all laid out that you could start to make these predictions. What do the predictions mean? They mean absolutely bupkis. They don't mean a damn thing because we don't know what the Tennessee Titans are going to look like on December 1st when they come here to town. We don't know what the Saints are going to look like after the bye week on December 15th. We don't know what they're going to look like. Caleb Williams might be great when the Bears come here week 8, or he might be on his way to Bussville. And that is, I'm surprised really that that's a 1 o'clock game because you have the 2 top picks at quarterback. I mean, this is quarterback league. These are the 2 hope of the future quarterbacks. Caleb Williams is, they hope is going to be the next Patrick Mahomes, and Jaden Daniels, who they hope is going to be the next C.J. Stroud or something like him. And it's a 1 o'clock game on CBS. That's kind of surprising. But I'll tell you what, we'll do what we do. I've been doing this for years, usually with other people. We go back and forth making predictions on what's going to happen with the games. And more often than not, we don't save what we wrote down. So at the end of the year, we don't really know. Now, I had a rule during the Snyder era. In the Dan Snyder era, every season started with 8-8. And if it was a really good season, you might get to 9. When they went to 17, you might have dreamed about 10, but not in recent years, not with all the turmoil and all the problems that were going on in the organization. And then if it was a bad year, it was anywhere between 5 and 7. That's kind of the way things went. Can you dream bigger now? Maybe, but they're still clearly a year away, 2 years away. I mean, this is a team that maybe could be like the Houston Texans and ride the hot rookie and get to the playoffs, maybe, but I don't think it's likely, and I think they realize that. And I think what they did in free agency, where they had all that money to spend and spent very little of it, relatively speaking, considering how many players they brought in, 20 new players. But I think that with the future looking like it does, maybe 2 years from now, you can start looking at the schedule and see their playoff push in the second half of the season. And not only look at that, but how far they can go in the playoffs. We're baby steps now. And I'll get to the game-by-game breakdown, prediction, whatever you want to call it. But let me just take a quick look at the schedule and how it all lines up here. Not surprisingly, the Kansas City Chiefs are what the NFL dangles for every big deal that they make. I'm sure that this deal for the 2 the 2 games on Christmas Day on Netflix, the big negotiating chip was the Kansas City Chiefs. Okay, we want you to pay X, and Netflix says, okay, we'll pay X if you give us the Chiefs. They have given them the Chiefs, and they've given them the Chiefs on the road at Pittsburgh, where it could be a much more competitive game because of that. Will Russell Wilson still be playing quarterback for the Steelers then? And we'll have to see. Will it be Justin Fields? Maybe. And by that point of the season, Steelers may be a really bad team. And Kansas City, assuming they still stay Kansas City, that could be, like a 2-touchdown game, but we'll have to see. But they were there. And then the Ravens as well, with Lamar Jackson, the MVP of the league, that's another bargaining chip. So they gave them both. And this one is really, actually, if you look at the 2 games, it's actually the better of the 2 games is the Ravens and the Texans, because you have now the established MVP in Lamar Jackson and C.J. Stroud, who's coming off being Rookie of the Year and maybe really hitting his stride in his second year. So that went into it. And how about this? The Chiefs are set to play games Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. That's only happened once before in NFL history. The 1927 New York Yankees. Not the 27 Yankees who played baseball. Yes, there was a football team in 27 named the New York Yankees. They played games on 6 days of the week in a single season, but that was the prehistoric days of football. This is the modern NFL, and it's like, you got Bucks, we'll put the Chiefs on for you. It's a television show. That's what this is. This is a television show. And they finagle things so that they can play a Wednesday game, 2 Wednesday games on Christmas. They have the Thursday games. They have now Friday games. They have Saturday games. It's just, it's NFL all the time. Now, as far as the schedule, you got the Chiefs maxing out on primetime games. You got the Jets, who stunk last year because Aaron Rodgers didn't play. Rodgers is back. They're back in prime time. 2 Monday night games, including the opener at San Francisco, 2 Thursday night games, and 1 Sunday night game. They're assuming Aaron Rodgers not only is healthy, but he's still good. Remember, he hadn't played in 2 years, so we'll see. Mike North is in charge of doing the scheduling for the NFL. He was on the Ross Tucker podcast and was not at all defensive about putting the Jets on as many times as they have, and the Chiefs as well.
I guess you could put less Jets in prime time, but by the same token, you could put less Kansas City in prime time, less Dallas in prime time. That's probably not what our fans are looking for from us. I think they're looking for the big teams, the big brands, the big stars in big television windows where they can watch them if they want to. And if injuries happen, well, hopefully the team's built for it. Second most important player on the roster might be the backup quarterback. And then, if we find ourselves in a situation where a team isn't having the season they want and they still have some national television down the stretch, that's where flexible scheduling kind of kicks in. We're not doing anybody any favors, leaving them in a big window, playing outdoors at night in the cold when they're eliminated from playoff contention. Let's move that game back to an afternoon slot and find somebody who has played their way in. It's a zero-sum game. If a team is losing their quarterback and they're down and their record isn't good, somebody else is coming into that spot. I read the stat in the press release this morning, something like 34 years in a row that the NFL has had 4 or more new playoff teams every year. So there's always surprises coming. That's where flexible scheduling kind of kicks in. That team we didn't see coming here in May, can we get them into a national window when they've played their way into prime time in December?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds to me like, Michael, and I know some people don't like it, but that's really the answer, right? Is just the more flex scheduling, the better. The earlier the flex scheduling, the better. And what I always say about people about the flex scheduling, people get up in arms about it. You're not really, it's almost like, I feel like it's almost like the fire alarm, right? Like break glass in case of emergency. You're not really going to pull that thing unless you feel like you absolutely have to. And quite frankly, if you pull that thing, the team themselves probably wants you to pull it at that point. So I think the flex scheduling thing, people get all up in arms about it. You didn't even really use the one last year. So I don't know. I think that's a little bit much ado about nothing.
It doesn't happen as often as you would think if you read the Twitter sphere, but it is a tool in the toolbox. And, like we said, it's sports, right? None of us know anything. God forbid you get some bad injuries and the league looks very different. And nobody saw Houston coming last year, and they were a great story. I'm not sure who this year's Houston is just yet. See who's coming out of nowhere. But it's not always about flexible scheduling for prime time, right? We could move you on a Sunday afternoon from a 1 o'clock window to a 4 o'clock window, or even oddly from a 4 o'clock window to a 1 o'clock window, and get you a little more distribution, let a few more fans find your game and be able to get introduced to your franchise as you're probably, we think, heading for January football.
Any unique challenges this year, Michael? I know there's always, I think Taylor Swift has concerts maybe in 3 NFL cities.
Yeah.
I know you're not allowed to say anything bad about her.
Never. I went to the tour. It was spectacular. No, look, there's always
unique challenges?
There's always challenges. There's, college football games. There's golf tournaments. There's NASCAR races. There's teams
But who gets priority? All those other things get priority before you guys? It's the NFL stadium.
We're not making our best schedule if we're asking our teams to have to fight their way through challenges. And you think about a baseball team, maybe they don't share the stadium anymore like we used to have in the old days, but they still share a downtown footprint. They still share parking lots. They still share municipal services. And, here we are trying to guess which one of the NFL teams are going to be playoff relevant. We've also got to keep an eye on the Major League Baseball schedule. For years, we didn't really have to worry about scheduling the Ravens games in October because the Orioles were not competitive. And suddenly now the Orioles are going to be right there. So suddenly now that schedule for the Orioles is going to impact that Ravens schedule a little bit more in October. So kind of working around stadium availability. We kind of hinted at the Wednesday already. You've got teams playing Sunday, Saturday, Wednesday. That's 3 games in 10 days. There's a handful of other teams playing Monday, Sunday, Thursday, 3 games in 10 days. So if that happens to fall on somebody, can we... Lights went off in the conference room. Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm standing too still. Hang on, let me turn the lights on.
There we go.
There you go.
Managing, the competitive challenges for our teams. You never want to completely be dismissive of the competitive challenges that you're putting on your clubs in the pursuit of, revenue or television viewership. And I'll tell you, maybe the biggest challenge, honestly, Ross, is we've got a lot more teams now playing multiple short weeks, right? For a long time, we only played Thursday games on Thanksgiving. Then we had a half-season package of Thursday games, starting in Thanksgiving and going down kind of a run-up to the playoffs. Then we expanded it to a full season worth of Thursday games. And as we partner with Amazon and we continue to think about how to build that product and build that brand, one way to do that is to put more of the good teams on more often. Same way Sunday Night Football is always the number one show in television. It's because they've got 3 Dallas Cowboys games, 3 Kansas City games. It's the same reason why we're looking at the Amazon package and thinking about, hey, can we put a few teams on twice? And that will, kind of lift that EKG of their ratings every week, maybe raise the whole bar. So you got a handful of teams now, a lot more than we're used to, playing multiple short weeks. So can you spread those 2 short weeks out? You get the mini bye after your Thursday. Can we separate those mini buys from each other, from the full bye? Make sure that everybody's got those kind of 3 separate rest periods. I don't think, again, we're doing a good job if you got, both your Thursdays and your bye all done by week 8. Then you've got whatever it is, 9 or 10 weeks uninterrupted of football. Try to give everybody that rest period somewhere in there. If you're going to play those multiple short weeks, take advantage of the time off after with that mini bye and spread those strategically throughout the year. That's probably been the biggest challenge now.
That is NFL schedule maker Mike North on the Ross Tucker podcast. The point he made about the Orioles being good and how they have to kind of account for that with the Ravens. You might remember this. When they won the Super Bowl, which would have been in January of 2013, they won in New Orleans. That's where they beat the 49ers. As Super Bowl champs, they should have had the honor of opening at home on a Thursday night. Instead, they had to play that Thursday night game on the road. I think it was at Tennessee, and they lost. And the Orioles weren't even that good then. That was Peter Angelos just being obstinate. But he's right. They do share parking lots. And it would have been very difficult for them to hold a football game on the same night as they held a baseball game. So the Ravens were forced to open the season on the road, and they have to, allow for that kind of stuff. And as far as the flexing goes, there's, I guess, automatically some flexing for the Commanders no matter how the season goes, because the Week 17 game where the Falcons come here, that's either going to be December 28th or the 29th. And then the Week 18 game, which is against the Cowboys, I guess that could even be a Friday night game. They just have TBD there. They don't even have the dates. So those are 2 automatic flexes. And then I guess as they get into December, there's some other ones in there. They play the Saints on the road in Week 15, and they play the Eagles at home December 22nd. How about that? Well, they've been doing that anyway because they want teams that – to not be resting everybody for the playoffs. They want meaningful games at the end of the season. So 2 of the last 3 are against big division opponents. They play the Eagles Week 16 at home and the Cowboys on the road Week 18. We'll do the usual springtime dance coming up. I'll have to do it solo. Be like a little ballerina there as we go through game by game, and I'll give you my predictions. They'll be cast in stone. They will be taken to the bank and won for lots of money. No, it's just what we do, and we have, again, no idea what these teams are going to look like by the time the Commanders play them. But it's tradition, and we will continue the tradition on the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
We got Tony on a Thursday. Tony coming up at 11 o'clock. I don't know how much time he's going to spend on the schedule. Probably not a whole lot of it, but I was just looking at the Commanders' schedule. They are traveling Les Miles over the course of the season than any other team. Outside of the division, there's one, I guess it's West Coast, if you want to consider Arizona that. Yeah, I guess they do consider that. West Coast, that'll be week 4. They play at Arizona, and they play at New Orleans week 15, and they open the season at Tampa. Otherwise, basically no travel because one of the road games this year is in Baltimore. Yeah, it's a bus ride. And as you look at the schedule, and I'm going to go game by game because it's what we do. It's a sports radio thing. It's one of the most useless exercises we do, but you can't get through a schedule release without doing it. Just looking at how the travel lines up. Now, there is a tough spot for them in the early part of the season because in week 3, they have that Monday night game at Cincinnati, and then the following Sunday, they're on the road at Arizona. So they come back from Cincinnati at 3, 4 in the morning on a Tuesday morning, really, right? It's already flipped over to Tuesday morning. And then you have to leave to go to Arizona Saturday. They may even go Friday. Sometimes they'll do that when they go that far west. But then it really softens up because they come home against the Browns. The road trip against the Ravens is nothing. Then they get the Panthers at home. They get the Bears at home. They go to the Giants. That's an hour flight. Steelers come here. They go to Philadelphia. You can even do that by bus. The Cowboys come here, and the Titans come here. So in between going to Arizona on the 29th of September and going to New Orleans on the 15th of December, basically there are no road games there. There are games on the road, Baltimore, New York, Philadelphia. So what? So they should be able to make some hay in that part of the season if they're any good. I mean, there's a lot of questions about this team. It's all going to be about the development of Jaden Daniels. It may take a full season before they really find out how good he is and how well he adapts. But, if you want to kvetch about that short turnaround, Monday night at Cincinnati and then having to go out west and play the Cardinals the following Sunday, realize how soft it is there in the middle. That is... that's a schedule that Tony could do. He did Monday Night Football for 3 years and left partly because of the travel. He does not fly or hates to fly. He will fly. And he had a bus for the season, but he looked at the schedule for year 4, and there were a lot of West Coast games, and he said, nah, that's it. Check, please. I'm out. So here we go. And, take it for what it's worth. This is just my glance at the schedule. I have no idea how good these teams are going to be. The strength of schedule, for what it's worth, has them at number 16th highest strength of schedule in the league. So right in the middle, and some of that's related to that, the Cowboys should be pretty good this year. The Eagles will be good, and I guess they're banking on the Giants being a little bit better. So those are division games that you play every year. But outside of the division, the schedule is softer than it was last year when they won only 4 games, at least based on how those teams played last year. They open at Tampa on September the 8th, and they got Baker Mayfield now signed to a big contract there. Bucks are a pretty good team. I saw him play in person last year in Atlanta. I think that's going to be a tough opener for Jaden Daniels, if in fact he's the quarterback for that game. We don't know that yet, but I like the Bucks to win in week 1. Week 2, they come home. That's the home opener against the Giants. And by that time, we'll be hearing all about the improvements to FedEx Field. We will see what the crowd looks like. If they've done good work in the offseason, the crowd won't be mostly blue. There'll be a lot of burgundy in that crowd, but we'll see. That'll be September 15th. I think they can beat the Giants there. Then they go to Cincinnati in week 3, and that's the Monday night game. Now, I think we're going to be very curious to find out just how healthy Joe Burrow is, because he's coming off a very nasty wrist injury. And although the reports are he looks fine throwing the ball in off-season workouts, sometimes that can be a career-altering injury. And Joe Burrow's been great. He's come back from injuries before. He hurt his knee at FedEx Field in his rookie year, came back with his spectacular second year, took his team to the Super Bowl. But we don't really know about the health of him. So I have them losing at Cincinnati to start off the year 1 and 2, but I also temper that with wondering how exactly Joe Burrow is going to look. Then they go to Arizona in week 4. maybe somewhat of a revenge game for Cliff Kingsbury since they fired him. I don't know. What does that mean, a revenge game for an offensive coordinator? Probably nothing. Zach Ertz, he played there. They cut him last year. Maybe he's got a big game in him. Who knows? But I got them winning at Arizona. Then they come home against Cleveland. Now, Cleveland's a good team, and Deshaun Watson is presumably going to be healthy. But I think off the confidence they have winning at Arizona, I got them beating the Browns in that game. Week 6, going to Baltimore. Seems like it's been a while since they played in Baltimore. I have to check that, but it seems like it's been quite a few years since they played there. Most of the time the Ravens, for whatever reason, have come here. But that's going to be in Baltimore in Week 6, and I like the Ravens to win that game. Then the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers are the only team that doesn't have a primetime game. Their primetime game is a game in Germany. I think they're playing the Giants, the one game in Germany this year. They're playing them. So they stink. The owner is the new jackass in the league, replacing Dan Snyder, David Tepper, and I like them to handle the Panthers. So at that point, they've lost to the Bucs, the Bengals, and the Ravens. That's 3 losses, and they got wins over the Giants, the Cardinals, and the Browns, and the Panthers. So they're 4-3 winning that. Then, and again, I don't know why this is not a primetime game. This is Week 8, October 27th. They've got the Chicago Bears coming in, and this is like this kind of game you would seemingly be able to hype. Maybe they've played the Bears 2 years in a row on Thursday nights, so maybe they wanted to get away from that a little bit. I don't know, but a 1:00 game on CBS, and it's too early in the season to flex. I don't think they could even move that to 4:00 if they wanted to. I may be wrong about that, but I don't think they can. So you got Caleb Williams against Jaden Daniels in Week 8. That would be, to me, a very interesting game. I like them to win. I like them to beat the Bears here in Week 8. Then they go to the Giants. Again, hardly any traveling here. After they get back from Arizona, Browns at home, Ravens on the road, Panthers at home, Bears at home, Giants a quick flight away. I like them to beat the Giants in Week 9. Week 10, the Steelers. And the Steelers come here. And they beat Russell Wilson last year in Denver. I'm not so sure he'll be the quarterback there, but I think that this is going to be kind of a letdown game for them. I think after 3 straight wins, they're still too young. They're still inexperienced with winning. I think Dan Quinn's a really good coach, and I like everything they've done so far. But you have these. So and plus, you got this short week before they play the Eagles on the road. They play the Eagles on Thursday night. Maybe there's a little look ahead. Not that you could really afford to be a look ahead team with a past like they've had, a recent past. But I think this is a letdown game. The Steelers win. Then I got the Eagles game, another loss. So that would be 2 straight losses. That's Thursday night. And then Dallas. So that's a pretty tough stretch there. They play the Eagles on Thursday night. They do get the 10 days. And there had been a number of reports that I saw that they were going to run it back again with the Commanders going to Dallas on Thanksgiving. That's not the case. So they're having the Cowboys come here. I guess they've done this in the past. Because the Cowboys are playing at home, they can do this. I thought generally if you played on Thursday, they tried the best they could to have you at home. Maybe the team that's coming in to play the Cowboys, I haven't looked at what the Thanksgiving game is yet, but maybe that team is coming in from the road as well, so they wanted to even it out a little bit. But the Cowboys are going to be here on Sunday the 24th. No Thanksgiving for the Commanders this year. No Thanksgiving game day. I got them beating the Cowboys, and I think maybe I'm got rose-colored glasses on, but by that time there'll be enough people who have bought tickets that it's probably going to be still 50-50 because Cowboy fans have probably already bought up a lot of tickets already. But I think they beat the Cowboys there, and that becomes really the Dan Quinn signature win there because Quinn spent the last 2 years as the Cowboys defensive coordinator. And this is the kind of game where he will really feel good. Now, the Cowboys didn't fire him. He left there. The Falcons fired him. But I think coming from Dallas and beating his old team, that would be a huge thing in Week 12. Week 13, Tennessee comes here. Again, very little traveling for this team. Tennessee at home. I think they beat the Titans on December 1st. Then you got the bye week, and it seems like the last few years, the bye week has always been late. Bye week in December, they say it's good because they're at that point in the season, they're pretty beat up and they need the rest. You'd really like it around the middle of the season when it comes like in week 4 or 5. I think that's as early as they start it. Maybe it's 6, whatever it is. Whenever they start the bye, some say, it's a little early for a bye. Well, this probably comes a little bit late, but they're still in the hunt at that point, right? I still think that they've got an opportunity to make the playoffs at that point. Then they go to New Orleans on December 15th. I got that as a loss. Maybe they win that game, but I got that as a loss. Then here's where this season like this can get crazy. They beat the Eagles in Week 16, and now you have big hope the rest of the way. That leads you to Week 17, assuming he's still healthy. You get Kirk Cousins here either December 28th or 29th, which would be either a Saturday or a Sunday. And the last 2 years, they've closed the season at home against the Cowboys. This time, they're closing the season at Dallas. I think they still have playoff hopes going into that, but those playoff hopes get quashed because the Cowboys are still playing for something, and they win that game. But that shapes up, and that could easily be a Sunday night game if both are really good at that point. So I got them with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 wins. 9 wins, which is, I think, what I picked last year, and they won 4. So you don't know, but there's higher hopes this year. And with 9 wins, they would go into the last couple of weeks of the season with hope of making the playoffs. I just don't think they're quite there yet. But I got them with wins over the Giants at home, the Cardinals on the road, the Browns at home, the Panthers at home, the Bears at home, the Giants on the road. That's 3 straight. Yep, that's when the season really has a lot of hope in November. Wins over the Cowboys at home, wins over the Titans at home, and the Eagles on the road, which I think will be their last win of the season. But I think I'm in the ballpark there. I don't know what the over-under. I think the over-under this year is 6.5, might be 5.5. I'm not sure. But this is probably not going to be a huge step-up year, but it's a year that there will be some promise. And what's going to be interesting to watch is how the fan base jumps on board as the course of the season goes on. I mean, are we going to have in Week 16, December 22nd, 2 days or 3 days before Christmas, a green crowd? That wouldn't be a good sign. Even, of course, it may depend a lot on the record. If the record's really good, maybe it's not green, but they've probably already, purchased busloads of tickets to bring fans up to see that. So we just went through the exercise. What it means, who knows? But I got them winning 9 games this year, 9-8, flirting with the playoffs, not quite getting there. And next year, 2025, they get in for whatever that's worth. And you got to qualify it with all that. All right, coming up, we'll get to the NBA and what happened last night. Rebound from Luka Doncic, who said, "Take that, Charles Barkley." Stay with us. It's the Andy Poland Show, ESPN 630. It's probably about 15 years ago when Mark Cuban, who owned the Dallas Mavericks at the time, he's since sold them, was looking at the growing influence of the NFL in television. And I was chewing everything up, and he said, well, pigs get fat, but pigs get slaughtered. Well, the pig is getting fatter and fatter and fatter, and there are no signs of slaughter. This is Godzilla pig, getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And what the NFL did in releasing their schedule shows you just how they have gobbled everything up to become the biggest television show that ever existed. And the star of that show is the Kansas City Chiefs. You want ratings? We'll give you the Kansas City Chiefs. We want you to spend X amount of dollars? We'll give you the Kansas City Chiefs. Oh, and we've got the B team, too, the New York Jets. Now, they stunk last year. Chiefs won the Super Bowl. They got the best quarterback in the game, but these are the Jets with Aaron Rodgers, who used to be the best quarterback in the league, and we're going to spread him out as well. So the Kansas City Chiefs, in the schedule that came out last night, which includes now, for the first time, 2 games on Amazon on Christmas Day on Wednesday. Is there anything more gluttonous than that? that you have taken Wednesday, which is Christmas Day. You know, they used to try to stay away from Christmas Day, even when it was on a Sunday. Now it's on a Wednesday. Last year, it was on a Monday. Okay, they play games on Monday. It's Christmas. Let's have some more games because people are home watching TV. Now it's on a Wednesday. They don't ever play games on a Wednesday, except if they know they've got this huge audience, if they know they got Netflix willing to pay millions and millions of dollars. And here's something else with Netflix that you may not have thought of. It's the international influence. Yeah, they've gobbled up pretty much all they can in the United States. But there are other countries which we can get fat on. So Netflix is all over the world, and we'll have our games all over the world on Christmas. Yeah, this is how it works. And they're going to go to 18 games. That's inevitable. Roger Goodell says we won 18 games. When they won 18 games, it's just like Sonny Corleone in The Godfather, where he smashes the guy's camera and he throws down a couple of 20s. This is how they handle the Players Association. Yeah, we're going to 18 games, and here's another $1 billion, and I get out of here. That's how they're going to do it. And as is pointed out in a story in the Post, sports and the NFL, above all others, have remained one of the few live appointment viewing holdovers of the streaming era. In 2023, the NFL accounted for 93 of the 100 most watched TV broadcasts, and even with its new spate of streaming deals, the vast majority of the league's games are still available over broadcast TV. Yes, true, but they have now teamed up with Google YouTube, Amazon, Peacock, and now Netflix. And again, they want the global influence of that, and they're playing a game in Brazil this year. Why not? Oh, and it's a Friday night. We didn't play Friday before, but we'll play Friday night. What the heck? Just incredible. Now, with all of that, the Commanders wind up with basically Sunday afternoons. They got one Monday night game, which is Week 3 at Cincinnati, one Thursday night game, Week 14 at Philadelphia. Otherwise, it's Sunday games and a lot of 1 o'clock Sunday games, including, and this surprised me in the schedule, that when the Chicago Bears come here in Week 8 and you have the number 1 quarterback in the draft and Caleb Williams in a homecoming game, because, you know, he grew up in the area and went to Gonzaga, and playing Jaden Daniels, the number 2 quarterback, it's a 1 o'clock game on CBS. Kind of a surprise, but I guess when they looked at the schedule, they said we got sexier games that weekend. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to put that there. I don't think they can flex it that early. I don't think Week 8 games can be flexed even into the 4 o'clock window after 1 o'clock. But I went through the schedule, the usual fruitless exercise of predicting it game by game, and I got them winning 9 games this year. Maybe it's overly optimistic, but you know, it can't be worse than last year when I picked them to win 9 and they won 4. Now, that was with a quarterback who had only 1 start going into the year. This year, we got, if he wins the job, it could be Marcus Mariota. But if Jaden Daniels wins the job, and they haven't given it to him in the way that Caleb Williams has already been gifted the job by the Bears, if he does not win it, then it would be, you know, Mariota. But if he wins, he will go into this with exactly 0 NFL games. So it's maybe a similar situation as last year. All right, to the hoop from last night, and Charles Barkley going into this game that was on TNT last night between Oklahoma City and Dallas, the series tied at 2. He said, it's in Oklahoma City. They're a faster, younger team. Dallas is hurting. Not only is Oklahoma City going to win the game, they're going to blow them off the floor. That's not what happened. The Mavericks won the game 104-92, and Luka was Luka. 12 of 22 from the floor, 5 of 11 from three-point. He had 10 rebounds, 11 assists, 31 points, and talked to TNT after the game.
Luka, we were talking about in most of the broadcast, it felt like your whole approach was different tonight. You didn't talk to the referees. You were focusing on your opponent. What changed for you tonight with your demeanor?
Yeah, I just trying to play basketball. Just trying to focus on basketball. Sometimes I forgot this is the thing I love. This is the thing I do. And, you know, my mental focus was just go out there and play basketball, you know, with a smile on my face and just go.
It seems like this series is following the same pattern as last series against the Clippers, where you lose the first game, you win the next 2, you lose, and then now what happens moving forward?
I got That's what we do when, knock on wood.
What just happened there, by the way?
This is my thing. It's like when a cat crossed the road, so you got... no, but, we just got one more. We got one more to win out of 2 games. That's it. We're up 3-2, but that's still nothing. We got to finish it and go with the same mentality home.
How about all the injuries you've had? Your knee, your ankle, your Achilles, your back, your teeth. How you feeling going into Game 6?
Great. I'm feeling great, man.
I'm sure you are.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it's basketball. When we win, it's great. When we lose, I feel like I let my team down a couple games. But I just trying to play hard. It's hard, but I'm trying to go.
Last thing, do you have a message for your buddy Charles Barkley back in the studio? Before the game tonight, he said the Thunder were going to blow out the Mavericks. What do you have to say to Charles back in the studio?
I don't know, but I love that show. I love those 4 guys. I always watch it, all the games. But maybe next time he can say it again in the next game. So maybe we'll win again. So, but that's it. I don't know what to say.
All right, Luke.
Say hello to all 4.
Okay. And Draymond. Draymond's in the studio.
Too. Say hello to Draymond too.
Okay, so now as far as Barkley goes, he gives us strong opinions. And he says, I'm going with the information I had at the time. So, I don't blame him for going out there. That's what he's paid to do. He's paid to make predictions. He thought Oklahoma City would win big in this game. They did get a good game out of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He had 30 points, but they were terrible from 3. Oklahoma City jacked up 43s. They hit only 10 of them, 25%, 42% shooting from the field. And they also didn't get to the line very much. They shot only 10 free throws last night. So this was not the team that Barkley was expecting to see, and expressed his surprise in the studio.
We probably seen Oklahoma City play 10 times. I don't remember them being that stagnant offensively. And it's frustrating to watch because nobody can join the party, but I don't remember him going one-on-one every single time. They've got to do a much better job. And the coach, the lineup change backfired.
Yes.
It backfired.
Isaiah Joe into the starting lineup.
Yes, because number one, he came out overhyped and got 2 quick fouls, and he only scored 4 points, I think. 6. So now he got a big decision to make. Do I stay with it or I go back to Giddey? I mean, that's the toughest thing about being a coach. Sometimes you try stuff, it doesn't work. But the main thing, they got to find a way to get the game sped up, because I think they got enough athletic ability to get up and down the floor, but they're not scoring at all right now.
Yeah, and when you score 92 points in a playoff game, that's a problem. And they have been held under 100. Was it twice in this series? Oh, got 101 in the previous game, and they did hold Dallas under 100. Can they do it again tomorrow night Saturday night as the Mavericks look to close it out? We'll have to see. Celtics have moved on. No surprise. Cleveland all beat up. They handled them pretty easily last night, 113-98. So they wait for the winner of the Knicks and the Pacers series, with the Knicks now taking the upper hand, winning 121-91. They will play tomorrow night at Indiana, with the Pacers looking to stay alive and the Knicks looking to close it out. And then the game tonight, Denver at Minnesota, as that series took an enormous shift, with Barkley, among others, predicting a sweep for Minnesota when they won the first 2 games, especially Game 2, 106-80. But Denver has come back to win fairly easily. They won Game 3, stomped them 117-90, which is really where the series shifted. And then Denver came back to win Game 4, 115-107, and then they win Game 5, 112-97. So it really hasn't been close since they were blown out in Game 2. But last night on PTI, Tim Legler was on and was asked to assess what's happening in both those series by Tony and Mike. First, what's going on between the Knicks and the Pacers?
Yeah, I actually also said that if you could submit as a player 1/4 of any game in your career.
Timeout. Let me set that up again. I got that out of order. He talks about the game between Denver and Minnesota first. So Denver, as he said, where you had in Game 5, Luka, who had 40 points and 13 assists, he said you cannot play a third quarter any better than he did. And so that's what he was presented with by Tony and Mike last night.
Yeah, I actually also said that if you could submit as a player 1/4 of any game in your career, you wanted to make that your submission for people to look at and judge you as a player. So we wanted to be at your best. That was the quarter for Nikola Jokic. And it was a variety of reasons. It was first of all, it was dominance literally every possession. I felt like every single trip went through him. And that's not always the case with Denver. That's first. Secondly, at one point on 3 consecutive baskets, he posted up 3 different 7-footers, one of whom was the Defensive Player of the Year, one of whom who was the 6th Man of the Year, who's a big-time defender in Naz Reid, and one of whom is a perennial all-star caliber player in Karl Anthony Towns. It was 3 straight trips. So I joked it was 21 feet of work that he put in 3 trips. And it was almost laughable how difficult it was for them to stay with his footwork. And at the end of it, this amazing touch that he's got. So with the ease with which he did it, the perfect reads with the passing that he made, and just the level of aggression that he exhibited and his ability to convert literally everything that he had an opportunity to, I just thought it was absolutely beautiful, dominant basketball, and watching an MVP player at his absolute best.
Well, the big switcheroo in the next series we're going to talk about, Knicks-Pacers, took place between games 4 and 5, where you get this massive turnaround. Tim, this is less about strategy to me than the Pacers. I'm sorry, I would be critical now, not being tough enough, mentally or physically. Please feel free to tell me I'm crazy.
No, I think it's fair. Look, I do think it was a blessing in disguise for the Knicks to get blown out in Game 4 rather than lose a close game late, because Josh Hart would have played 48 more minutes that night. Brunson would have played 45. DiVincenzo would have played 47. Instead, being down 30 meant Josh Hart played half a game that night. Other guys got rest. I do think that mattered. They looked a lot fresher last night, so that's part of it. Secondly, 3 things changed from what happened in Indianapolis. The first is Nembhard was back on Brunson far too much, and I've been screaming it since before the series. He cannot be caught in one-on-one situations with Jalen Brunson. It is going to be a basket or something really good for the Knicks 90% of the time. Too much of that took place last night. There was less of that in Indianapolis. It was more Nesmith on him, more Nembhard last night. So Brunson got back into a comfort zone. The offensive rebounding really came to bite them. 20 offensive rebounds means you can't get out and run, which is when the Pacers are at their best. And then the last component, Michael, and this points to what you just said, where was Tyrese Halliburton? There's been 2 games in this series where you didn't notice him offensively at all for the Pacers. Game 1 and last night. Coincidence, they lost both games. Tyrese Halliburton cannot have his floor be that low as an offensive player. He's got to be better than that. He's got to bring it the next 2 games if the Pacers want to have a chance to win this series.
That's Tim Legler on Nuggets, Timberwolves, and Knicks, Pacers. The point he makes about the last game in New York being such a blowout, that it gave, rather at Indianapolis over the weekend, it gave the Knicks a chance to rest those guys, and that was probably helpful in the game the other night. The other thing that's probably going to help them is they get an extra day of rest. If they were going on the usual travel day rotation kind of thing, they would be playing tonight, but they don't play until tomorrow. So it would seem that would favor the Knicks, but they're playing on the road. Different atmosphere than Madison Square Garden. And if the Pacers win that, they would play Game 7 of the series on Sunday afternoon in New York. As for the Timberwolves and the Nuggets, as that series, as I said, has made a major shift, that could be decided tonight with the Nuggets looking to wrap things up on the road at Minnesota. And Draymond Green, who's part of the crew with Kenny and Shaq and Barkley, believes that it's done. It's over.
It's over. Wow. That series is over. Because Denver now got all the momentum, and Minnesota doesn't believe anymore. Ant-Man may believe, and that's all fine and dandy, but you need everybody around you to believe, and Rudy Gobert is getting cooked. They need to get Karl Anthony Towns on Rudy Gobert, but, yeah, it's over.
I have to disagree with my good friend Draymond Green. I still have faith in Mr. Meow. He hasn't really been playing well, but I think he's definitely going to hear that. It's definitely going to be motivating, but he's hearing the talk of how he hasn't played well. He definitely needs to step up. And just needs a little bit of help. So, you get him going, and, just like the first 2 games, if they can get that type of momentum, type of spark, I still believe him a little bit. But if they don't do any of that, whatever Draymond said.
But as Kenny points out, too, that loss of Mike Conley. Yeah, to me, it's Mike Conley. If he is in the lineup, they have a great chance to create the pace.
Joker?
Create the pace where Karl-Anthony Towns and also Rudy Gobert gets lobs.
Mike Conley guarding Joker?
And everybody else gets things.
Okay, Mike Conley guarding Joker?
But Mike Conley also makes players better. So when he has those stupendous games, you also can have what I also feel with Ant-Man is out front. Everyone has eyes on him. When he's coming off them baselines and lobs, it's hard to defend him. It's much more difficult to defend. So it really depends on the health of Mike Conley.
No, it really depends on – I've said the whole thing all year. It all depends on Karl-Anthony Towns. I mean, Draymond was talking in the back. It's time – no.
Wait, who else was talking?
We're having another conversation.
Yeah, I heard that too.
This is what we said. Karl-Anthony Towns got to be a grown-ass man.
Absolutely.
Go to the coach and say, hey, you know what? Let me take the Joker. Now, he can't stop him, but he can't do any worse. Karl-Anthony Towns has to go to the coach and say, hey, coach, I want the challenge. That's what he should do because he's cooking Rudy. I think because I always said they only going to go because Ant-Man, he the man. But Karl-Anthony Towns, I've always said he's the key. He need to go to the coach as coach and take the challenge. And
for Rudy, when you're guarding a big man that scores, you can't let him get to all of his options. You can't give him room to get to all of his options. You're either going to give the jump hook away, you're either going to give the fadeaway away, but you can't give him that space to where Akeem did to me in '95 finals. And that's when I figured that out, because like Akeem, I was giving him too much space and he's able to go left or right. So Rudy, defensive player of the year, make him go one way and meet him at the top. You can't give him space and let him go boom, bam, and spin you and up and under you and do all that stuff. Yeah, you can't do that. So he's going to have to do that.
What? He's ready. He's over here whispering.
I'm just saying.
What you got to say? What you going to say?
But Chuck,
Akeem gave it to him in the
Chuck.
Barkley busted on Shaq for getting worked by Akeem in the '95 finals. That was when he was young. He was with Orlando. He was thinner. Then he went to the Lakers, played with Kobe, won 3 straight championships, and another one with Miami. And the rest, as they say, is history. Coming up, 44 years ago today, what many consider to be the birth of Showtime. Don't go away.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
Oh, we can all breathe easy. Patrick Mahomes has a sponsor again. He's going to be endorsing Throne Sport Coffee, which is said to be a brand new, better-for-you iced coffee. Capitalizes on increasingly popular coffee before fitness workout. Natural caffeine. What the hell is that? Natural caffeine, low sugar, calories. Good luck. The kids will be able to have Christmas now that Patrick Mahomes has another product to endorse. We've got Tony coming up at 11 o'clock, and today is the 44th anniversary of what is one of the most incredible performances anybody has ever seen at basketball at any level. And that was the Magic Johnson performance in Game 6 of the NBA Finals in Philadelphia. And what a year he had. March of 1979, he beats Larry Bird and Indiana State for the national championship. He is the number 1 pick of the draft, but not by a bad organization, by a great organization. Jerry West, the GM, had the foresight to send an aging Gail Goodrich to the New Orleans Jazz so he could be the point guard for Pete Maravich. And they got the first-round pick of the Jazz, who finished with the worst record in the NBA. They had no lottery in those days, so the worst team got the number 1 pick, and that belonged to the Lakers, who, of course, used it on Magic Johnson. Bird had been drafted as a junior eligible the year before by Boston, so he wasn't on the board. There was no question that they were going to take Magic Johnson number 1, and he became something of a curiosity in top of being a great player, that he was a guy 6'9" playing point guard. But he had Kareem Abdul-Jabbar on that roster. He had Jamal Wilkes, who was already a great player. He'd won a championship 5 years earlier with the Golden State Warriors. Michael Cooper was a great defender. They had a veteran in Spencer Haywood who would make it to the Hall of Fame. So it wasn't the usual number one situation. It was a number one pick going to a great situation with Kareem, who is the MVP of the league. You don't usually join a team that has the best player in the league at the time, but that's what he was fortunate enough to do. So they're playing the 76ers, and in Game 5, Kareem suffered an ankle injury. He managed to come back in the fourth quarter. The Lakers won. They have a 3-2 lead, and they go to Philadelphia for Game 6 of the series. They still have the luxury of coming back for Game 7 in Los Angeles if they lose, but you don't want to put yourself in a situation like that. You want to be able to take care of business. Now, going into that game, there was some question whether Kareem was even going to make the trip. 76ers coach Billy Cunningham said, "I don't believe he's not playing until their plane lands, and he's not on it." Well, as it turned out, Kareem didn't make the trip. Now, this was a different NBA. This was tape delay. You had to watch this game at 11:30 at night. You couldn't see it live. That's how low the NBA was on the television totem pole. It's totally changed, obviously, and it changed in part because of this game. So, as legend goes, Magic Johnson, 20 years old, a rookie, sat in Kareem's seat on the plane. He took Kareem's spot in the lineup, started at center, scored 42 points, had 15 rebounds and 7 assists. The Lakers won the game and the series in 6 games, and Magic was named the MVP of the finals. And this is a different Magic Johnson than you're used to hearing today. Remember, this is a 20-year-old kid who's just had the year of years, national championship, most watched national championship ever, most hyped, Magic and Bird, winning that, number one pick of the draft, rookie of the year, and then stepping in for the best player in the game and having the game of his life, 42 points and 15 rebounds, leading them to a championship. And the post-game interview conducted by the still active, I think he was still playing in the league, Rick Barry, talking to Magic about what he'd done.
And here's the man of the hour, Magic Johnson. Magic, what do you have that makes you perform like this in these championship games?
Well, I don't know. I love to win, and I guess that's the thing. I go in thinking we can win any game that I play, despite, Kareem wasn't in, and we want to say, hey, we did it for you, big fella, because you got us here, and we don't want to take nothing away from him.
A lot of people really weren't sure whether or not you were going to be making it in this league and making it big. And you certainly made a believer out of me, sir. I haven't seen you play that much. You were absolutely fantastic. I've got some good news for you. I don't know if you know it, but a national magazine has named you the MVP for this series.
Oh, well, thank you. I just tried to do my best and help the team win, and it's just great. The NBA, the whole season was great, and it's been beautiful.
I think that's really a capper to it, with Sport Magazine naming you the MVP. You have some few words to say to the big fella back in L.A.?
Yeah, big fella, we love you. We did it for you, and we want you to get up and dance a little bit tonight. I know that ankle is fun, but get up for us.
One final question I have to ask. You came in here, your teammates were rather subdued. This is probably one of the quietest locker rooms for a championship that I've seen.
Because it's unbelievable. I mean, it's unreal. Right now, we're just, thinking about it. It's happened so fast.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I don't know how much you realize this, but I was in the league a long time before I ever made it, and there's a lot of ball players around who haven't made it this far in a long career. This is your first year, and you're here. How many more of these would you like to get under your belt?
About 20.
Not that far-fetched. He won 5 and totally transformed the NBA with Larry Bird. I mean, it was the perfect storm, the two of them facing each other 3 times in the finals. But it all started on this day in 1980, and you look at who was on those rosters, in addition to the ones I mentioned with the Lakers, who all made the Hall of Fame: Kareem, Cooper, Spencer Haywood, Magic, Jamal Wilkes. The Sixers had Maurice Cheeks, Doug Collins, Julius Erving, Bobby Jones, and Pat Riley was an assistant coach on the Lakers. That, if you watch Showtime, he was not the head coach of that team. He was an assistant. And Billy Cunningham's assistant with Philadelphia was Chuck Daly, who went on to win 2 titles with the Bad Boy Pistons and also coached the Dream Team, the Olympic team, in 1992. You look at that game, and when it happened, I don't think anybody could have dreamed on that night, as great as Magic was, how the NBA would incredibly transform over the next 10 years. Really, the 80s were the decade that made the NBA what it is today, and it all started with what Magic did in that championship game. One other thing to throw in here before we scoot over for Tony, and that is Joe Buck is going to do a baseball game. Looks like May 24th. He's going to be working with Chip Carey as the Cardinals play the Cubs. This is the local network that does the Cardinals game. Chip Carey's in his first year. He's Harry Carey's grandson, who did the Cubs for many years and the White Sox before that. It would be the first game that Joe Buck has called, first baseball game, since Game 6 of the World Series between the Braves and the Astros, November 2nd, 2021. He left right after that to go to ESPN, where he has been doing Monday Night Football and no baseball. Now, he previously called the Cardinal games from 1991 to 2007. His father had done that as well, 1954 to 58 and 1961 to 2001. You know, the only thought I have on this, and I think Joe Buck is terrific doing baseball and football, but he's been out of baseball now for 3 years. You know, hasn't done a game since the World Series in 2021. And you don't hear people, you know, clamoring for him. I was just thinking, if this was Bob Costas, and Costas's first love is baseball, but let's say that Costas was doing both football and baseball for NBC, as he did for years, and they were, you know, at the top of the mountain in the way that Fox has been for football, and he left. What if Bob Costas left NBC and was the primary guy? They were doing the World Series every year, and Costas got an opportunity to do Monday Night Football for ESPN, and he left. There would be people who would say, and this is to take nothing away from Joe Buck, but there would be people who would say, oh, man, World Series hasn't been the same since Costas left. You don't really hear that about Joe Buck. And he was good, and he was really good. And he was at his best, I think, with Tim McCarver. McCarver has passed away, and he's been off the air for a long time. But, you know, with John Smoltz, you would have thought that there would be a void. And maybe there is, but, you know, when you hear news that Buck is going to do baseball, it's like, well, okay, he's going to do that. But he's now become the football guy. And it's also, I think, the way that the NFL has completely swallowed up everything else. If you're doing the NFL, that's where it's at. And as good as baseball can be in the playoffs and the World Series, it's very niche now, very niche. And Joe Buck coming back for what is, I guess, a ceremonial appearance where he's going to do the Cardinals and Cubs May 24th for Bally Sports along with Chip Carey. You know, there was a day when Harry Carey and Jack Buck, now that was a team. Chip Carey and Joe Buck, not quite as much. Anyway, I'm going to take tomorrow off. I will be back on Monday at 9 a.m. Tony is coming up next.